So today, it's finally about time I get around to doing this video. Today I'm going to be doing a full system overview of the Bosch FPD-7024. Well, not a full overview, but I'm not going to go to super depth. I'm always going to give a lot of the basic functions and features of this panel. This is not like your typical Bosch panel where it's like intrusion, access, and fire. This panel is more of a traditional fire panel. This can only do fire, so you cannot do intrusion or access control. It's a 24-volt system, and you have onboard NACs. And yeah. Excuse the door not being on here properly, and the damage to the door, but I don't have any need to fix the door, at least currently. I do have the key lock, but I don't it goes in here, but I don't have the little turn thing that will actually lock the door. But this does take a Bosch 203 key. Now this is actually the newer version of the D7024, which were actually originally branded by Radionics. Radionics was the first manufacturer of these before, obviously, Bosch bought them. Based on a copyright thing on the inside of the door tag, the little tag on the inside of the door, these things were introduced, I'd say, in 2009. So these are relatively newer panels. They added from the D series. I'm just gonna take the door off. Maybe not. They added lots of features from the D7024. Well, they changed a lot of stuff from that panel. They actually added a knowledge button. They also changed some of the things on the software. And yeah, obviously to update the model number. But the FPD-7024 is just the newer version of the D7024. And yeah, and you also have a removable terminal box. There's a lot of changes between the panels. So yeah. But again, this is basically just your typical fire panel. So I'll go ahead and show you the wiring and stuff, and yeah. Before I do that, here is the tag. There's where it says 2009, so copyright 2009 Bosch Security Systems. So it gets generated on 9, so I guess these came out around 2009. But yeah. There is the tag. This panel doesn't have AC wiring terminals, so you just have to use wire nuts to connect the panel to AC power. This is also obviously a 24-volt system, and unlike your typical Bosch panel, you have actual onboard NACs. You don't have to use like a supervised NAC card. This is not a security panel. It's it's just a more typical panel. So here's some of the specifications of this panel. It has 2 NACs. I believe they can have 2.5 amps of power output. I'm not sure if that's shared or per NAC. Here is your aux power up here. This is resettable power. And then you got your battery terminals. This is where your batteries come in. So, and then you have 4 zones. I think this is your option bus where you plug stuff like enunciators and stuff. They're really called keypads on the system because they are, well, on security systems they're called keypads, but they're just called enunciators here because this is more of a typical fire panel. You got your 4 zones. I'm using one of them. I'm using one smoke detector, so this is 1400. You can have up to 22 wire smoke detectors per zone. So yeah. Up here you got your relays and a grounding connection, and here you got your non-resettable power, which is SMK plus and SK minus. Obviously they're intended for the smoke detector power for wires. These are programmable relays, so you can program what they do in the panel. I guess you could program what zone, like let's say you want to have relay 1 go off, but only if zone 1 activates. You want to go off if the other zones activate. You need more than 1 fire zone. You could do it. And then up here you got your 2 telephone lines where you can connect them to your phone line have the central monitoring service. This panel is UL listed, and you actually you can actually find many different variants of this panel, including variants of like icons and stuff. I see these panels used a lot in like Latin America, like South America, that area. These are pretty cheap panels, and that you can get them for actually pretty affordable prices. Some of the components is also kind of cheap, but this panel works pretty good. Not saying it's a terrible panel, but like it is. I mean, some of the hardware is kind of cheap, but overall, it is actually kind of a nice panel because it has lots of features. Oh yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it, but these NACs are FWR. Here's all the power supply stuff. Actually, this is the actual transformer. But here's your circuit board. Here's all your circuits. And yeah, big capacitors. You got 6 LEDs, and this is another difference to D7024. The D7024 doesn't have these 2 LEDs. Supervisor and the ground fault. But they added them on this panel. Here's the LCD, and here's the keypad. Interesting feature with this panel, and I don't know any other fire panels that have this, but I know the B series security panels from Bosch have this. When there's no conditions, like there's no troubles or no supervisories or no alarms on the system, and you're not actively and the system's not being actively used, the backlight will turn off. But you can turn on by pushing any button, and they'll come on. And then they'll turn off after a few seconds. There. Instead of having a menu, like a menu system where you can scroll through a menu instead of access to many different functions, you just have the different types of functions and dedicated keys. So you get your number pad, obviously. 0 is also a programming key, also lets you get into the system's programming menu. Enter your drill, disable, test, and here's where you got your free fire action buttons. Start with the fire drill, but I don't have any notification appliances right now, but if you push these, it'll turn on all the NACs with the cadence you have them set to. So, in this case, if I had Wheelock Sync on there, I'd do Wheelock Sync. If I had code 3, I'd do code 3. So basically, it's basically just a fire drill feature. It turns on the NACs, then you push the start button and it turns them off. So yeah, pretty useful, let's say. We got the disable button. This is where you can disable or enable inputs, outputs. Like inputs would be your zones or your points. If you had oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention. They have cards for this panel. To go over here, you have a card that that adds 4 zones to this panel. So you have to make this 8 zones. And then there's even something called an MUX card. The MUX card allows you to turns this into an addressable system with the capability of having up to 318 points. What basically this means that this is a very flexible fire. This is a pretty small panel, but for its size, it's actually pretty flexible. I see these panels a lot with like Wheelock safe paths for like voice evacuation. So if you want voice evacuation, you can use a safe path with this thing. Oh yeah, and also the LCD feature. The LCD will also do the thing where it dims even if there's an event on the system if you cut the AC power. So if the AC power goes out, then the screen will dim even if there's an event on the system like an alarm or a trouble or supervisory. But anyways, we can disable our zones and our points. You can also disable the outputs like the relays and the NACs, and you can also disable the dialer from here. And this panel also has support for up to 4 remote NAC booster things that are like addressable. So you can up the NACs with that. So you can have up to like 5, 6 NACs on this panel, I think. So it's a very flexible panel. Here's the test button. So allows you to access anything like walk test. You can test the communication. You can call remote. You can have a battery test. You can, let's see, battery test. You can answer your call. You can test outputs, test inputs, and MX test. The walk test, you can have a short activate or long activate, how long you want it to activate, and no activate. Basically, walk test, it will also show, it won't show a history of the points, but it will show the last point on the screen you tested. It will show waiting or testing. And also, when you start short activate, it actually blurs the next once when you activate the device, and then as soon as the panel is ready again, it'll do 2 blurs, so you know that you can activate your next device. Test COM and call remote, those are for the dialer features. I don't have anything for dialer activated right now. Test battery NAC. What this does is it turns on both NACs and does a load test in the battery, so you can see right on the LCD screen what the battery voltage is directly. So you can just do a test like that. It'll write the NACs, and yeah. The test inputs thing, test outputs. This is what you manually turn on relays and NACs. So I can do that, and they'll just do a continuous if you turn them on. It won't do the cadence you have to set to. So if you that click, that NAC is now giving up power, but I don't have any notification appliances set up on it right now. But if I did, they would be going off if I turn on. And even if you exit the menu, it will still keep them on, which is kind of interesting. But as soon as you reset the panel next, they will turn off. And then you got your test inputs. So this lets you test a certain zone, and you can see how much power in milliamps is going through the zone. So I guess I don't know why you need that, but okay. And then the MUX test thing, which is 8. I don't have an MUX card, so I don't know what the heck that does, but it does something with the MUX. The history button. The history button shows up to the last 99 events that you have, last 99 events on the system. And I believe there are also cards and stuff that allow you to expand that up to like 300, I think. 300 events, and also have more permanent memory. If you restart this, do a cold boot of the system, then all the history will clear. And then you get programming key. This is where you can access programming. You can have up to like 6 user accounts. You just have like 6 pin codes for the programming, all with like different access levels. So yeah, you got all your programming modes. So you can choose which program time, security system, inputs, outputs, accounts, formats, history defaults, and stuff. I'm not going to go too in depth, but I'll show you some of them. We can program security. We can program our pins and our authority. So I'm not going to go too in depth with that, but basically that's where you can program like your different pin codes and what you want those pin codes to do. So have access to. Program system. You got timers, AC line link. And then you can program with the RPS software, remote program. Which is basically the Bosch programming software. So here you got timers. So you got different timers for different things. I'm not gonna go. You can also change your display rate too, and AC delay and stuff like that. Go back to here. Timers, AC line link, option buses. Again, you can also change whether the pin is required for the keypads, so not keep enunciators. And the next option bus, you can add, different enunciators with it and stuff. Program inputs, you can basically, I don't know what the point copy thing does, but I'm not completely sure. That's only for addressable, but basically, point numbers and point function, those, well, they call the points the zones, but both of them do kind of different things. So point number, choose which one you want, and you can change like the output zone if it has verification, and if it's like alarm trouble, like when the thing is open, you can see it says it's flashing, and you set the description. On the other hand, when you do the point function, that lets you change what it does, whether it's like a supervisor or an alarm. You can also change. And from here, you can also change if it's local only. So, like, if it's, I guess that means if it's local only, it won't it won't do the dialer loop response, because that's how long it takes for it to respond, I believe. And yeah, so I can see you got fire, water flow, supervisory, reset, silence, AC fault. Those are all the kinds of things. The water flow. The difference between the water flow and the fire is that the water flow has a delay, so it prevents false alarms if like water's like if like you're unreleasing the tamper but I believe it has a little bit of a delay, but the fire doesn't have a delay. So yeah, and then you can also go to our program outputs. You can program this is where you can program our relays and our NACs. So we can, alright, this also has support for extra relays, I think, on a card. We can have our local and our 4 remotes, but we want to do local. I have it on NAC 1. We can set our zone assigns, which basically means you can have NAC go off on certain zones, and you can have your configuration. So the coding options are steady, pulsing, California, temporal, wheelock, system sensor, and Gentex. And so California is actually March chime. And yeah, on this panel, for some reason, they labeled March time as California code. It's not like March time for like, not like March time, but like it has the thing where California code turns off after about 15 seconds, and I think, and then it comes on after like 5 seconds, something like that. It's the California on this panel, it just does March time infinitely. So it just does it with no pausing or anything. That's kind of weird. Oh yeah, it does have wheelock and Gentex and system sensor sync. The system sensor sync is kind of weird on this panel because I think, but yeah, and those do support audible silence. I don't know how to turn off the audible silence on this panel. I'm not the most familiar with this panel, but I do know these do support audible silence on the NACs when you're doing sync. You can program your accounts and your formats and your MUX card and your defaults. So the accounts and the format thing, those are for the central monitoring service. So if you're using central monitoring service of this panel. But yeah, here's all the mounting screws you get on the panel too. I forgot to go through that, but well, I didn't forget. I don't know, I didn't even think to do that. But then you got program your MUX card, which is for your addressable card. So that's basically it for the programming. Again, it's a pretty simple panel, but it's actually pretty versatile. I'll give a little bit of a demo of this panel when it's an alarm, and I'll do that by activating the smoke detector. So it's an alarm now. You can see the piezos, you can hear the piezo. And so we can push the acknowledge. You can either do acknowledge or silence, but silence will also it's kind of like on Firelight where silence button will also silence the piezo, but it will cause the NAC to silence if you have anything connected to it. I have it labeled as a heat detector right now, and it also uses a seasonal point system. So basically you use these arrow keys. It's kind of like simplex. This panel's kind of like simplex, how it divides like the different. And like also like the EST, like EST, it's kind of like the EST 2 and 3 and the simplex panels, where it divides the different events, but instead of having 3 separate acknowledge keys or 4, simplex is the priority 2. You have alarm, supervisory, and trouble. So you can sort them through the different kinds of events like this. And so yeah, interesting thing about this panel is that the drill button is locked out and same as the test button, but you can still go through the programming on this panel when it's an alarm. So it's kind of interesting. You can even have the NAC on while you're in programming, by setting it to alarm and then going to programming. That's kind of interesting. This panel, and for some reason you can't do the drill and the test buttons while the system's in supervisory, which is really weird. I think this is the only panel that does that, where you can only access you can't access a drill and test buttons when it's in supervisor, which is really weird. But when to clear it, you can use the silence button. Well, the silence button will silence the NACs. Obviously, and the light will come on, and then reset. This panel doesn't have a lamp test thing. The only way to do a lamp test is to cold boot the panel and have it, because it does do a lamp test, I think, when it boots. And also the trouble light flashes until the system's done resetting. So yeah, and there goes the backlight. I really do think that is it for this panel. So it's kind of a brief overview of this panel, but this panel is a pretty flexible little fire panel. It's kind of cheap. It's available. You can get these panels. We could actually get these panels for kind of cheap if you look correctly, but they are very versatile. You can have 8 zones, 318 points. This is probably, yeah, it's a very versatile little panel here. And by the way, the type of addressable points you can use are the same ones you can use with the addressable B series, with the Harrington signal, like the T-bar pole stations with the Bosch, and then you got those small detectors. So you can use those Bosch addressable small detectors, the same ones you use for the B series, I think, and also maybe some of the addressable D series panels possibly. Because I do think the D series was still being made up to, I don't know, but basically this is a nice panel. I'm rambling on for a while, but I do really kind of like this panel. I actually got this panel for free, so yeah. It's only available in red. You can't get it in gray, I don't think. I don't see though. Anyways, that is it for this panel. Thanks for watching and have a good day.